King's on this subject later in the week. We've been discussing this with Jonathan Portis, who's a Professor of Economics at King's. He's also a Senior Fellow at UK in a Changing Europe.
So what we're looking at is the changes to the immigration system overall and the nature of immigration to the UK, particularly since Brexit. What we've seen is that, contrary to the expectations of both of the public and, frankly, of experts like myself who got this wrong, who were expecting that we'd see a significant drop in immigration, actually, what's happened has been more of a shift in the nature of immigration. So we've got more people coming from outside Europe, fewer people coming from inside Europe. But actually, immigration overall is running at record levels. That's partly driven by special factors like people coming from Ukraine and Hong Kong. But work-related migration and student migration have actually increased by quite a bit. And as I said, that's driven by people coming from outside Europe. So that's one big surprise. But the second big surprise is that despite this, or perhaps because of it, we're not really sure, there has been this significant and sustained positive shift in public attitudes toward immigration. So if you ask voters, overall, do you think immigration has had a positive or a negative impact on the UK? That began shifting up some time ago, and we've now got half of the population who say it's had a positive impact and only about a third who say that it's a negative impact. And that's a pretty big shift. It hasn't happened suddenly. It's happened progressively over time. And similarly, if you ask people, do they think immigration should come down or go up? While overall the balance is still in favor of people saying it should be reduced, the number of people who think it should be reduced by has gone down quite a lot, again, consistently over a period of time, whereas the number of people who think it should be increased or remain the same has increased very substantially.
Jonathan,
you
said that part of the reason that you were surprised by the data is that the nature of immigration has changed. I wonder whether that causes a problem for the Office for Budget Responsibility when it's putting together its growth forecasts, because it assumes, doesn't it, the productivity of a migrant worker. But if that nature has changed, maybe the sums are wrong. Maybe the Chancellor's got a bit more headroom.
That's possible. We don't know it yet. Of course, one of the reasons for the shift in the immigration system post-Brexit, from free movement on the one hand to this system that applies to everybody wherever they're coming from and prioritizes people who are more highly paid and highly skilled, that was supposed to try and get supposedly, to put it bluntly, the immigrants who we want or we need higher productivity, higher salary. So you might hope that over time, indeed, immigration would be more of a boost to growth than it has in the past, that the people coming in wouldn't be just average, they'd actually be better than average. Now, the OBR, as you say, hasn't taken account of that yet. So perhaps we might see an even more of a positive impact from immigration on growth. But the OBR, and I think this is not unreasonable, is essentially saying, well, let's wait and see. Let's wait a few years and see what the data actually says, because frankly, we don't yet have the data to be certain that the new system is working in the way which the government and perhaps economists would like it to work.
And so to go back to your survey, if one of the main findings is that attitudes are surprisingly positive towards immigration, when you listen to the Prime Minister and the Home Secretary talking about their policies on small boats crossing the Channel, how do you square those two ideas?
Well, I think that there is no question that that what the data also shows is that people want a sense of three other things perhaps. What do they want from an immigration system? They want an immigration system that allows people who we need, who will contribute, who will work in jobs where they'll contribute to the economy. They want a sense of control. That is to say that the borders are being controlled, and that's clearly one of the issues with the small boats thing. And they want a sense of fairness, that people are being treated fairly. We collectively as a country is being treated fairly, but also that people who come here are being treated fairly. So I think there isn't a contradiction in principle between saying, yes, we want lots of people to come here to work and study, as they are, and that's good, but we want to make sure our borders are controlled, and we don't want people crossing in an irregular fashion in small boats. Where I think that the political debate about is what is fairness. Now, the government is arguing that it's not fair that people should come here in small boats and, quote, jump the queue. They should come here in safe legal routes. On the other hand, the simple fact is those safe and legal routes do not exist. If you are an Afghan who supposedly ought to be able to come here under one of these safe and legal routes, you simply cannot, because the government has essentially made it impossible to do so by a combination of deliberate policy and incompetence. So we have, so I think this, and this is to some extent a personal view, that the public has quite a different attitude towards how we should treat, say, people coming from countries like perhaps Albania, where the drivers may indeed be, in a significant number of cases at least, economic, and people who are crossing the world, from Afghanistan and are coming here by boat because they have no alternative and because they have a personal connection with the UK, because perhaps they were employed by the UK in some capacity in Afghanistan, or they have family here. And I think, again, this is somewhat of a personal view, that people are not necessarily going to be are supportive of the idea of getting the system back under control and making it fair. But fairness does not necessarily mean saying to Afghans or Syrians, right, we're going to try and put you on a plane in Rwanda, or failing that, lock you up in a camp indefinitely, which appears to be the government's stated policy at the moment.
That was the economics professor Jonathan Portes from King's College London.